see that your phone is in silent mode. And we have an official video on the tripod and everything, so you don't need any other videos being taken. Everybody's a videographer, and one's enough. And that's about it for housekeeping. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tathati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Datapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Shadvajatam Shahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Satvaitam Savatutam Pravijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lolita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Purana Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krishna Bhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Holi Priye Vacha Kolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhopyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. And is there a place for the children? Do we have a nice room someplace where they can play and mess around?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, upstairs.
As a child, I didn't like to be stuck in some lecture somewhere, so we don't want the younger children to be stuck having to listen to me. They can play, romp and jump and have a good time. And close the door after them. Who's new? Nobody's new. Everybody's been here before. We've been, for the last several days, we've ended by speaking about my Kirtan standards book. Since we're now out of books, I won't end that way, but I'll start that way, perhaps. We'll speak a little bit about this book. More copies will come. They're to be ordered, so everyone can get one. And I wrote it in part because over time now, I joined in 1968, Prabhupada left in 1977, now we're in 2025. That's like 50 years since Prabhupada's departure, half a century. And over that time, our institutional memory, or our memory of how Srila... Enough. Pocket cameras, pocket narrative. Okay? Please. They're just distracting. For you and for me. Our Vrindavan, by the way, is ruined. Our Vrindavan temple. Who's been to Vrindavan in the last year? You go there and what do you see when you go for darshan? And then people's families dance and someone's taking pictures and once the video's over they stop dancing. The whole thing has become just everything's photography. And they don't consider that the real person who's supposed to be seeing is not me, it's Krishna who's supposed to be seeing me. Krishna is the subject and I'm the object. They're thinking Krishna's the object and I'm the subject. No, it's Krishna who has to see. Srila Saraswati Thakur said, don't try to see Krishna. Try to act in such a way that Krishna will see you. And Krishna sees you, and what does he see? Anyway, coming back to my earlier thoughts. In the time that's passed, we've forgotten how Srila Prabhupada led Kirtan, what his standard was, how he did it. Maybe we've hardly even heard Prabhupada lead Kirtan. And certainly we weren't around when he was leading Kirtan. And so much of what he instructed about Kirtan, or the example that he set, is just sort of history. And so I've tried to collect some of Prabhupada's statements and recollections by the devotees so that we'll know what it was that Prabhupada liked, what he didn't like, what he did, what he didn't do, so that we can take it into account. Then, according to the time, place, circumstance, maybe there's some adjustments, but at least we'll know. Otherwise, what we know is, what was happening when we joined. What were they doing? What were the other devotees doing? And we don't really know whether they were doing the same thing that Prabhupada taught us to do. All we know is that this is what we do. And no one's to blame for that, but at least I shouldn't be to blame for not publishing something about what Prabhupada's standards, or my generation at least shouldn't be blamed for not trying hard to convey what it was that Prabhupada taught about the main thing that we do, namely Kirtan. One of the things, well, just for example, how did Prabhupada end Kirtan? Or how do we end Kirtan in our temples, in our programs? It's a rhetorical question, maybe you know how we end Kirtan. But Prabhupada ended Kirtan by chanting all the way to the end, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, in whatever tune. And then he stopped. Jai Krishna Bhakti. That was it. No extra nothing. Just for your information. That's how he did it. Can we chant something else? Yes. Did he? No. Do we have to? No. In 2026, that's like a revolutionary statement. But no, we don't have to chant anything else. And I've written in the book someplace that if we got rid of all the something else that we chant, there'd probably be an increase of 10 or 15% of Hare Krishna in the Hare Krishna movement. Now coming to one thing, and it's not meant to criticize, but it's just meant to inform. Because if we're not informed, that's not our fault. But if we don't try to pass on what we've heard, and that's all. Now this is an interesting essay written during Prabhupada's time by Holiness Swami, who at the time had been Prabhupada's, one of his GBC secretaries, traveling with him, and had been temple president of Vrindavan. And Prabhupada had wanted to set the standards for ISKCON Vrindavan, new important temple. And so he taught Holiness what he wanted. Now there's some other things which he also taught at the same time. The next instance relates to the methods of singing Mangal Arti. We were chanting Mangal Arti within the room of Srila Prabhupada each morning. Sometimes Prabhupada would appreciate the singing, and sometimes not. Later on in the morning, after a particularly bad kirtan, Prabhupada called me into his room and complained about the singing. He said, again, more or less, I did not like the singing in the morning. The morning melody must be sung throughout the Mangal Arti, and no other melody should be sung. What's the morning melody? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Prabhupada, there's a recording, Prabhupada said, this is the morning tune, and then he goes on chanting. And there's a part 2, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. So that's the morning melody. So the morning melody must be sung throughout the Mangal Arti, and no other melody should be sung. Who here has attended Mangal Arti in the last 6 months? Okay. Who here has heard the morning melody chanted throughout the Mangal Arti and no other melody? You have. You've heard it. Wow. You too. A rare soul. Rarely do I hear the Mangal Arti. It's always another tune, another tune. But good, I'm glad that it's going on. The morning melody must be sung throughout the Mangal Arti, no other melody. It should be sung sweetly and melodiously, like this. And he proceeded to sing the first verse of the Samsara prayer in a very sweet and melodious voice. Prabhupada was very insistent that the singing should be done in that way only. He indicated that he wanted me to lead the kirtans in the morning as a way to establish the standards within the temple. The next morning, I led the kirtan in his room, duplicating the melodious style which he had shown me the day before. Prabhupada was pleased and seemed to enjoy the kirtan. Unfortunately, I fell victim to that demon within the mind and started to speculate a couple of Jayadvaitas at the end of the kirtan. This was one of the bigger mistakes made by me at that time. Although there's nothing wrong with Jayadvaita, Prabhupada simply didn't want us to chant it. He once explained that Shukadeva Goswami did not feel himself qualified to chant the name of Radha, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and therefore only indicated her name with the word Aradhan while describing the topmost gopi friend of Krishna. Furthermore, he has said that he did not feel himself qualified to enter into the Seva Kunj area of Vrindavan, and therefore we should not either. And again, when taking a bath in Radha Kund, one should not place his feet in the water. These are all things that Prabhupada had said at that time, or before that time, although perhaps others might have had another experience with Prabhupada at Radha Kund, but this was the statement in September 1974. Prabhupada also said to me, just for the record, that the entire spiritual world was to be found within the walls of the Krishna Balaram temple, and therefore there was no need whatsoever to go outside these walls on some pilgrimage. Anyway, to continue the story, I had just started to chant Srimati Radharani's holy name within Vrindavan Dham, her beloved Lord's abode, within the presence of her most intimate devotee, during the most auspicious hours of the day, when her most intimate devotee looked at me with eyes blazing like fire and desirous of initiating my immediate destruction. Voice choked and gagging, I ended the Kirtan immediately, without further formalities, never again to make the same mistake. Prabhupada never ended Kirtans with various extra mantras, especially not Jai Radhe, so why should I? So these are some of the things that you'll find in the book that may be surprising or, as we say, coming out of left field, coming out of nowhere. But I thought, well, we should record these things. Otherwise, we're being negligent. Devotees should know we're all chanting, we're all part of Srila Prabhupada's movement. So it's important, I would say, for us to know what Prabhupada taught. If people come and they don't know, well, that's natural. But if we don't, those of us who are with Prabhupada don't tell, then that's our negligence, our fault. So the book is for that. There, as I mentioned, I think, did I mention this the other day, that there's a lot of surprises in the book?
Yes.
Okay. So those who like surprises, by all means, get yourself a copy. Any questions before we go on to Bhagavad Gita?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing this it's enlightening to us.
Excuse me?
Thank you so much for bringing this knowledge, because we are not aware of it.
Yeah.
So, and thank you so much for starting me also. So, I have a question.
By nature, I like to cause trouble.
I have a question regarding this one. Radharani is your internal part of our sampradaya, right? She has given the major role, right? So, and of course there are a lot of songs on Radharani. Acharya. There are a lot of songs written by Acharyas
Yes.
on Radharani, like Radhashtam, Ram Kataksha. So many songs are there, right? So, when can we sing those songs? Are we, like, should we sing that?
When can we sing the songs concerning Srimati Radharani? First of all, we should sing songs by the Acharyas. There's lots of popular songs about Srimati Radharani, Sri Krishna. But our business is not popular songs that we've heard in Vrindavan or that we get from the internet. Our business is the songs sung by the Acharyas. And as you've said, there are, our Acharyas have written Ashtakam and songs
Yes.
in glorification of Srimati Radharani. Some of the songs we have to consider two things. Well, some things. One thing is, some songs are quite above our head. And Srila Prabhupada, when Achyutananda Swami compiled the songs of the Vaishnavacharyas, which was our first songbook, Prabhupada said we should avoid the higher level songs, like songs of Jayadvaita Swami, Chandidas. These were relished by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but Prabhupada said they're meant for the Paramahamsas, not for the beginner devotees. So there are some songs which are, the Prabhupada said these should be avoided. They're bona fide, they're relishable, but they're meant for the higher class devotees, not for us. So that's one consideration. Generally, we try to, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but we know that we're on safe ground when we're chanting what Prabhupada chanted. There may be many other bona fide things, but we know that we're on safe ground when we chant what Prabhupada chanted. Can we only chant what Prabhupada? No, there are many songs by the Acharyas that Prabhupada never specifically chanted, but they're appropriate for us also. I never heard let me think, the only song about Srimati Radharani that I ever heard Prabhupada chant, and I think I only heard it on a recording, I never heard him chant it personally, was Radhe Jaya Jaya Jayadvaita, which is Rupa Goswami. And he chanted that once, perhaps on Radhastami in America somewhere, maybe Los Angeles. And another song, let me think. He didn't chant it, but he appreciated it very much. They were singing in Bombay. Let me just remember. Yeah. This is a recollection by Giriraj Maharaj. Well, let's start. This is my writing, specifically targeted on this point about, I'll read the whole thing actually. Though Srila Prabhupada disapproved of adding Jai Radhe to Kirtan, he approved of two Jai Radhe bhajans. One was the song by Krishnadas beginning Jai Radhe, Jai Krishna, Jai Radha. The other was the song by Harivyas Devacharya beginning Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Sri Radhe. Giriraj Swami tells this story about a Kirtan group that came to chant at the ISKCON Guru Temple. This is Maharaj. One highlight came at the end when a female devotee from the group sang Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Sri Radhe, Jai Krishna, Jai Krishna. Later, Mr. Sethi told us that when Prabhupada was listening to that song, tears of ecstatic love were streaming down his cheeks. That kirtan was wonderful, Prabhupada told me the next day. We should invite the whole group to stay at Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada also sometimes, though rarely, sang the bhajan by Srila Rupa Goswami beginning Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite. For example, on Radhastami in Montreal on August 30th, 1968. We should not use these bhajans to slip Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe into kirtans, circumventing Srila Prabhupada's instructions. The bhajan Radhe 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 Jai 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 Sri Radhe seems to have entered ISKCON kirtans after Srila Prabhupada's departure through the association of Srila B.V. Narayan Maharaj, who used to chant it. Srila Prabhupada, however, did not chant it or teach us to do so. I'll just read you one more quote. This is from Bharahari Prabhu. Well, maybe there's a couple of quotes on that page. Let me find it. Bharahari Prabhu wrote, or told me, he gave us Radharani's name to chant 8 times while chanting the Mahamantra. It's not like he didn't want us to chant Radharani's name and take shelter of her. We're spending 2 hours a day expressly taking shelter of her. But there was a way. It's respectful. It's appropriate for our level. He was very, very cautious that this is the name of Radharani, the most sacred thing in the universe, even more sacred than Krishna's name. Don't take it cheaply. Maybe there are people who are qualified to chant her name. I couldn't say. I'm not. Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj. See, is it okay to sing Radha Madhava Daite, sir?
Oh, well, of course, Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari. Actually, I'm told that in Gaudiya Math they consider that a very high song. And we've even heard that Saraswati Thakur didn't want them chanting that song. But our Srila Prabhupada chanted it, and therefore we chant it without consideration. If Prabhupada chanted it, gave it to us, we accept. So that's another Radha Madhava Kunja. By the way, do you know what Srila Prabhupada's favorite bhajan was? You know. Hmm?
Same song.
Hmm?
This song. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
No? Hmm? No. Bhajan Hare no. Prabhupada's favorite bhajan? No, that's Sakrishani. Hmm? Govinda Bolo, Gopala Bolo, that's on the disapproved list. Far from being one of Prabhupada's favorites. It's a cinema song. There's no record of any of our acharyas chanting, what is it, Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Bolo? Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada liked very much. Radha Madhava, Radha Ramana Hari, definitely. But Prabhupada's favorite bhajan. Krishna Ji Ka Naam Hai? No. Okay. Prabhupada told Jamunadasi that his favorite bhajan was Hari Hari Bifale. So we can get some idea what bhajans Prabhupada thought appropriate for us, what he wanted us to hear or sing, by hearing what he chanted, what he taught us. This is significant, that this was his favorite bhajan, Manusha Janamapaya Radha Krishna, Navachya, Janiya Shriniya Vishwakar. It wasn't Radha Krishna Pranamore, some of the more, what we would consider nectary. No? Hari Hari Bifale. There are also two songs that we don't hear very much, which are extremely important. And these are the two songs that Srila Prabhupada himself wrote on the Jayadvaita upon his coming to America. He shouldn't have had to tell us, but he did, that they should be included in the songbook, and that we could chant them just as we chant the songs by the other acharyas like Narottam Das Thakur and Bhojam Das Thakur. If you chant these songs, you'll find them. Study these songs, you'll find the whole, everything you need to know for perfection in Krishna consciousness in these two songs. Everything, top to bottom. Extremely significant songs, which we rarely hear, but extremely significant. Another instruction Prabhupada gave, of course, is that you can teach from these songs. This is a very old system and current system in our sampradaya, even other sampradayas. That you chant something and then explain it. And then chant something and then explain it. And then chant a little 1 or 2 lines, 4 lines, and explain. And that way people's interest is kept, and you can explore, you can mine the depths of that song. Because these songs are instructive. Bhakti Vinod Thakur's bhajans, Narottam Das Thakur's bhajans. So much instruction is there. So this is one way of teaching. You chant something, one verse, explain. And again, chant, explain. I remember we were on Padayatra, Odisha, and our my esteemed godbrother, Gaur Govinda Maharaj, was sometimes with us in the evenings. And he would speak in Odia, the local language. And of course we couldn't understand Americans, even the Hindi fellows and all this stuff. But he would, we could get to see what was going on. He had a special tune that he used to chant. You know that tune? Very singular tune. My voice is also shy and I'm not that musical. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare to sing that tune. And he would lecture, and during the lecture he would take some song, also sing the same tune, some verse, some song. And then he would speak from that point. He was a very strong speaker. And we couldn't understand, but we got the idea. So this is a very old system and very approved system. Speak something, chant something, speak something, chant something, speak something. And enlightening for the speaker and enlightening for the hearers. Something else?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for writing this book in first place. Hopefully we'll read and imbibe those, because we have guidance of what to do, what not to do. In this, since in the same subject matter that we're talking about, we also in the Aarti, after Aarti, we generally don't just abruptly stop. Actually, that's how we've been used to. Like we stop at Hare Krishna, we also glorify the presiding deities. So would that be also not something that Srila Prabhupada would have liked it? Like for example, if the deities are Radha Damodar, we end with Jaya Radha Damodar, like that.
Yeah. Well, this is a large subject. I devoted quite a bit of space to discussing the deity mantras. Let's see. Page 96 through 102. First thing is, let's say that Prabhupada didn't like invention. In the deity worship, in the Kirtan, he was always cautioning us about whimsical concoction, invention, manufacturing something. This is your Western disease, you always want to change, and so on. So he really didn't like our inventing something. But sometimes, because we're supposed to chant the names of the deities, the devotees invent something. Well, we have these deities, so we have to chant something. Maybe I'll come back to that. But here's an example of what I mean. Even before the construction of the ISKCON temple in Juhu was completed and the deities were installed, Srila Prabhupada wrote, for worshipping the deities in Bombay, including Sitaram, there's absolutely no change in worship. Adopt the same method as in our Vrindavan center, simply with 3 pujaris, just like in Vrindavan. They are all Vishnu Tattva, Ramchandra, Radha Krishna, Gaur Nitai. No additional kirtans. Simply do exactly as in Vrindavan. Yet these days in Bombay and other temples that have deities of Sitaram, we hear in the Kirtan, Jaya Sitaram, Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sitaram, Lakshman Hanuman. This additional Kirtan has never been what they do in ISKCON Vrindavan. Yet now the chanting of such additional kirtans has been going on so long that they've taken on the false appearance of being what we're supposed to do. And why one might misjudge giving them up to be a deviation. It's clear, the Prabhupada said no additional kirtan. But no, we have Sitaram, we have Lakshman, we have Hanuman. So we have to chant something. Jaya Sita, I can make up my own one. Jaya Jaya Sitaram, Jaya Lakshman Hanuman. You know, that's not what we do. We do what the Acharyas have done, what Prabhupada told us to do. He didn't say that we needed a Sitaram Kirtan at the end. He said no additional kirtans. Simple. As one devotee said in one of those memories videos, and I hope you're familiar with the Memories series, wonderful series. Done by my godbrother Siddhartha Prabhu. Devotee said, no means no. No additional kirtan means no. But coming back to the general topic of deity kirtan, let's see what we've got. In 1976, Shrutadev Das, when temple president in London, wrote to Srila Prabhupada asking if it was acceptable to chant in kirtan Jai Radha Landanisha. Prabhupada Pran Damahe, adapted from the song Radha Krishna Giti. I guess you've heard that song for the deities in the Valley. Gopal, Jiva Goswami Kanda. Prabhupada replied, yes, you have my permission to sing as you have requested. In New Vrindavan, I've somewhere heard, received similar approval. But what Prabhupada permitted has now become de rigueur, which means you gotta do it. You've got to do it, or devotees look at you like you hate the deities. Such deity mantras now seem to have become obligatory at the end of every kirtan. And in fact, they can pop up anywhere. In the middle of Mangalarti, after Gurvastakam, after Nrsingarti, or Tulsi Puja, or Jai Radha Madhava in the Bhagavatam class, anywhere. This practice, not begun or followed by Srila Prabhupada, has become so entrenched that in response to my Kirtan seminar, one of my godbrothers railed, which means complained, in a Bhagavatam class, because we're personalists and we're not impersonalists, we chant the names of the deities. Nitai Gauranga, Jai Nitai Gauranga, Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra, Rukmini Dwarkadish, Rukmini Dwarkadish. Are you a personalist? You don't chant the name of the deity? We always chant the names of the deities. We're personal. What, do you stand in front of the deities and ignore them? Does that make any sense? I'm chanting for the deities, but I don't chant their names. That's not necessary. What is that? What this godbrother's argument seems to have missed, of course, is that as far as we know, Srila Prabhupada himself never chanted the names of the deities. Nor did he teach us to chant such deity mantras. Does it mean that Srila Prabhupada was an impersonalist? That he was ignoring the deities? Before the deities, Srila Prabhupada always chanted Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That was personal enough for him. You can decide whether or not it's personal enough for you. Sometimes if a visiting Kirtan leader doesn't know the names of the deities, we see him lean over to ask someone, because we must chant the names of the deities. Where can this all lead? Here are some deity mantras I've heard in different parts of the world. In one of our temples in the Middle East, we have deities named Sri Sri Radha Krishna. So, you've got to sing a deity mantra. There I've heard, Jai Radha, Radha Krishna, Radha, Radha Krishna. In Los Angeles, I saw a very respectable visiting sannyasi lean over to ask the names of the deities and then chant, Radha Rukmini Dwarkadish, Radha Rukmini Dwarkadish, Radhe. This is, footnote. This unfortunate chant, of course, like several others mentioned here, is an instance of rasabhasa, an incompatible mixing of mellows, of feelings. When the large Radha Krishna deities were installed in Los Angeles, the GBC man at the time, as I later heard him say, asked Srila Prabhupada what names the deity could be given. Srila Prabhupada said, you can call him Dwarkadish. The GBC man asked, Radha Dwarkadish? With a long face and a sorrowful tone. Srila Prabhupada replied, Radharani has no scope for Dwarkadish. Then he said they should be called Rukmini Dwarkadish. So you get because we have to chant the names of the deities, we chant something which is contrary to the feelings taught by the acharyas. Then there's this from South Africa. Jai Radha Jagannatha Radha Jagannatha Radha. It seems devotees think they're supposed to chant the names of all the deities on their altar. And so, again from the Middle East, Jai Radha Ladhu Gopal Radha Ladhu Gopal. You know, we have to chant and we don't really know what we're doing. We're not following something that Prabhupada taught us to do. You just know that we're supposed to chant the names of the deities, and they're the deities, so we better chant something. And maybe we've heard somebody else chant Radha Ladhu Gopal or Radha Jagannatha or Radha Rukmini, so we just follow the leader. But it can't be traced back to Prabhupada, because Prabhupada never did it. And so then, how solid is the ground we're standing on? But sometimes chanting the names of the deities before whom we stand isn't enough. And so, perhaps in the interests of good intertemple relations, we chant the names of the deities of other temples nearby. And then, wherever I may be, I've lost my heart in Vrindavan. We hear devotees adding Jai Radha Sham Sundar. And for those who lost their hearts in Mayapur, Jai Radha Madhava, Jai Radha Madhava Radhe. And whichever other deities might be on our favorites list. And of course, after that, we can burst out into an ecstatic chorus of Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, regardless of Srila Prabhupada's instructions to the contrary. in Sri Mayapur, once the large Panchatattva deities were installed, of course we needed a new deity mantra. And so, Jaya Pancha Tattva, Jaya Pancha Tattva, Jaya Pancha Tattva, Jaya Pancha Tattva. Because we're personalists, we have to chant the names of the deities. But in this case, we're not going to chant their names. Instead of what Srila Prabhupada said to chant, these 5 names, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srila, Hare Bhaktivinoda. Instead of chanting these 5 names, we'll chant Jaya Pancha Tattva, Jaya Pancha Tattva. Again, of course, this didn't come from Srila Prabhupada, but now this is what we do. We make up new mantras, the only requirements being that the mantras have to consist of names of deities. They should have jayas, and ideally they should fit the standard rhythmic pattern. Jaya something, something, Jaya something, something, Jaya something, something, Jaya something, something. And so we think the new Panchatattva mantra works. But Srila Prabhupada wrote, strictly speaking, when chanting the names of the Panchatattva, one should fully offer his obeisances. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Sri Vashadi Govardhan. By such chanting, one is blessed with the competency to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra without offense. The method prescribed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pure devotees is to first chant the full Panchatattva mantra and then chant the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Hare Hare. But Prabhupada, the full Panchatattva, not Panchatattva, Jayadvaita. It's a concoction. Prabhupada didn't do it, didn't tell us to do it. Doesn't come from the acharyas. It's just we have deities, we have to chant the names of deities. This fits the beat, and we're in business. An unfortunate effect of the deity mantras we've added to Kirtan is to further cut down on our chanting of Hare Krishna. A typical Mangalarti Kirtan lasts only about 25 minutes. We start with the Gurvastika prayers and Srila Prabhupada's pranam mantras, and after we add our deity mantras and so on, the time left for chanting Hare Krishna gets pretty thin. My guess is that if we replaced all the deity mantras with Hare Krishna, there might be a 10% increase of the Hare Krishna mantra in the Hare Krishna movement. But everything is in the Maha mantra. Does that answer the question? Yeah. Oh, that's summarized it someplace. May we chant deity mantras? Yes. Must we? No. Did Srila Prabhupada? No. What could we do instead? We can do what Srila Prabhupada did. Just keep chanting Hare Krishna. Okay, there's the question. By the look of things, we may not get to Bhagavad Gita, but there's a relationship. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I'm not sure it's the right question or not, but one time, after Kirtan, Madhavdas Prabhu led a nice Kirtan, like 30-45 minutes. And end of that, he asked a question, everybody enjoyed. Then everybody raised their hands, yes. Then he said, it is not for you, it is for Krishna. So I didn't get quite. You want to throw some light on it? So what is that mean? Like,
What does it mean that Madhava Prabhu said that Kirtan is not for our enjoyment? First, thank you for reminding me. Madhava Prabhu has written a foreword for this book, which is really an excellent foreword. It's worth the price of the whole book. It's just an excellent foreword. So get the book just for that. You can leave everything else if you want. That's one of the first topics, actually, that appears in the book. What that means. This is from a Vyas Puja offering from my godbrother Pradumna Prabhu, whom Prabhupada called Panditji, who was served as the Sanskrit editor for Prabhupada's books. He made the point that in the Gaudiya Vaishnava line, our path has three aspects: sambandha, basic knowledge; abhideya, the means or the practices, and prayojan, the end, or the goal. Pradumna explained that sambandha, the basic knowledge, is the basis of the abhideya, the practices. What we do should be based on proper understanding, knowledge. Pradumna continued, the various practices of the abhideya can occur properly only on the basis of sambandha jnana, knowledge of our relationship with Krishna, Krishna's servant. If the practices are not based on sambandha jnana, or do not occur within the framework of sambandha jnana, remind me, there's a typo on this quote. Can you write it down? Page 23. Then we have to question whether they are bhakti or not. We have so many what we call angas of bhakti, limbs of bhakti. Limb means a part. A part does not occur without a whole. If we don't have a whole in relationship to the part, the term part loses its meaning. So it's important to understand how these various practices, let's take Kirtan, Shravanam Kirtan, exist within the framework of sambandha jnana, knowledge of our relationship with Krishna. To illustrate, Pradumna told of an incident at which he was present that took place at the Montreal ISKCON Temple in the summer of 1968, when Srila Prabhupada was still known as Swamiji. We had a glorious, a very ecstatic kirtan. And as we were exiting and going down the stairs, and Prabhupada was going back to his apartment, Vamandev turned to Prabhupada and said, Swamiji, that kirtan was so enjoyable. Prabhupada immediately turned to him and said, Kirtan is not for your enjoyment. Kirtan is for Krishna's enjoyment. So this is an example of how the anga, the particular practice of bhakti, what we call a bhakti anga, must be grounded in a greater inclusive basis. And then we'll know that each one is rooted in, is springing from, a desire to please and serve the Supreme Lord. It is not an activity done just for our own satisfaction. We should know that we are eternal servants of Krishna, and we should perform kirtan just to please him. This will lead us to the ultimate goal, pure love for Krishna. So it's very important to understand that Kirtan exists as part of a program of devotional activity, which is meant to take place within with the proper understanding. There are many professional Kirtan leaders, Kirtan singers, who chant, beautiful bhajans, and they sing like angels, and they have alankars that, out alankar, the alankars, and they're expert musicians, and they can hold a note for longer than you can imagine a note could be held. But they don't understand that every living entity is an eternal servant of Krishna. They understand that this is a traditional practice to sing bhajans and kirtans, and that they can earn a very good living at it. So it's their means of livelihood, and it's appreciated by the public, and it brings them pleasure and many other benefits. But they don't understand that this is an activity meant exclusively for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They may not even understand that there is a personality of Godhead, or that Krishna is the personality of Godhead. Today I'll chant a Krishna bhajan, then tomorrow I'll chant a Ganesh bhajan, and then with the beginning of the program I'll chant this, and then later in the program I'll chant that. It doesn't really matter. A bhajan is a bhajan. They don't have someone again. They don't understand that I'm Krishna's servant, and therefore I should hear and chant and remember Krishna to serve him. They have some other idea. So one idea is that this is for my enjoyment. And certainly there is pleasure in chanting Hare Krishna, no doubt. But Prabhupada was quick to point out to my godmother Vamadev that Kirtan is not for your enjoyment, it's for Krishna's enjoyment. It's not a performance meant to please the audience. Beautiful Kirtan, Prabhu, Haribol. It's not a performance, it's not an artistic exercise. Jamuna Devi has written that in Prabhupada's Kirtan there was no tinge of there being a performance. It was just glorification of Krishna. So this is Sambandha Gyan. If you just take Kirtan and leave out everything else, what are we doing? When there's Kirtan, I'm there. I've got my ganga, I've got my beard, I've got, I'm all set. But if there's a Bhagavatam class to sit and hear, I'm not there. If there are rounds to be chanted, I'm not there. If there are regular principles to be followed, I may or may not be there. But for Kirtan, I'm there. All right, we're happy anyone joins, takes part in the Kirtan. No, not terrible, we want that. But if one wants to make further progress, if one really wants to get the benefit of Kirtan, then we have to take to the devotional process of which Kirtan is a part. It should be grounded in the understanding that this is not art or entertainment or a way to make money. It's part of glorifying Krishna because I'm Krishna's servant. That's who I am. That's my eternal identity. Jivar Swarupa Krishna Nityadas. Is that okay?
Yes, Maharaj.
Good.
Thank you.
Yes. How much, till when should I speak? How long?
And maybe 2 more questions.
2 more questions, okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
When it comes to kirtans, we tend to use only...
If you could speak louder, because I'm half deaf and you have a low voice.
So when it comes to kirtans, we tend to only use the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So I was just wondering, why don't we use other adjectives?
Could you
and
please
poetry?
speak very loud?
So,
Just yell and it'll be fine.
okay. When it comes to kirtans, we tend to use only the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So I'm wondering, why don't we use other adjectives and poetry?
Why do we do what?
Why don't we use other adjectives or poetry to glorify Krishna?
Why don't we use other poetry,
Yeah, poetry or other adjectives.
other adjectives?
Other than on top of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, along with the Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Because Prabhupada, why don't we add adjectives or some? Prabhupada said don't add, don't subtract, don't change. Mahamantra, we don't add anything. No adjectives, no adverbs, no nouns or pronouns. It's already complete. You don't need to, just like a letter, if you're delivering a letter, you don't open it up and add or subtract something, you just deliver. This is called the parampara system, or succession, disciplic succession. What we receive, that's what we pass on. Otherwise, I change it, the next man changes a little more, the next man changes a little more, and pretty soon it's something else. So, Prabhupada cautioned us again and again, don't add anything, don't subtract anything, don't change anything. Now, are there other things we can chant? Yes. Prabhupada said that in the Kirtan we could chant Haraye Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namah Gopal Govindaram Srimad Yusudha. Because this was chanted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, these 2 lines. He said we could add this to the Kirtan. He also, as brought up before, he liked Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Rama Hari. This one also can chant. But he said we should always remember, let's see, very important instruction actually. In our temple, strictly Hare Krishna chanting should be given more importance. There's no harm in the mantra you've heard, but it is not very important. There are many such common songs composed by common devotees out of sentiment. But our principle is to stick to the authorities and always remember that Hare Krishna is the prime authorized mantra. So we chant Hare Krishna more because Srila Prabhupada told us to. Strictly Hare Krishna chanting should be given more importance. So that's what we do. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Hare Krishna. That's the substance of our kirtan. Because we're following Srila Prabhupada. Clear?
Yeah.
One last question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So my question is it okay for us, the kirtan can be fast and loud and
Can the
dance
kirtan be
and jump,
fast? Can the kirtan be loud?
and we dance and jump?
And dancing and drums? Yes. Yes, 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 and yes. It can be fast, it can be loud, it can have drums, and it can have dancing, definitely. And Prabhupada's pattern, in fact, and Satsrup Maharaj has described this, because I want to end without too much delay. I won't bring out Satsrup Maharaj's description, which is very nice, but Prabhupada would start very slow, slower in fact than, you hear the cartels playing faster with Prabhupada singing. Prabhupada would begin very slow and gradually speed up. He wouldn't be like a two-speed bicycle that goes at one speed and then suddenly, another speed. He'd slowly speed up. And then at the end it would be quite rapid, quick, and then Prabhupada would stop. He wouldn't go back to a slow, start very slow, speed up, reach a crescendo, and stop it. Now, he liked chanting Krishna Kirtan about the Goswami said they loudly chanted. So loud chanting is appreciated, but this is a recollection from my godbrother Tejas Prabhu, who'd been sometimes the temple president of Delhi in the early days. We had a kirtan at the Ram Leela grounds in New Delhi, 1976 March, and Dinanath was leading, and tens of thousands were attending and chanting. After the program, Srila Prabhupada and I were alone in the back tent, waiting for his servant and the car. As you know, he would often ask theoretical questions, and he asked me, so, what does he think of the kirtan? Understanding this was just a lead-in to his giving me an instruction, I answered with a bland, it was okay. Srila Prabhupada's definition to me then was as follows. No, it was not nice. It was clanging and banging. Kirtan should be sweet and melodious. Come, let us go to the ashram and have kirtan. And so we went to the Prabhupada, the servant, Bhargava, and myself. Except the servant, the three of us sat in his room, and Bhargava played harmonium on the request of Srila Prabhupada, and we had a long kirtan. On Srila Prabhupada's signal, the kirtan ended. He looked at me, smiling, a little shaking his head, and said, so sweet and melodious. And then he moved on with the rest of preaching and hearing. I'd heard him say, and heard that he's also said, sometimes stopping kirtan, no screaming and shouting. So kirtan is not clanging and banging, screaming and shouting. Kirtan is sweet and melodious. And yeah, sometimes you hear kirtan where it's just like, yeah, and it's just like, get everybody revved up. It's not like that. Sweet and melodious. And the ecstasy will come from the mantra, from the devotion. It doesn't need, what's the word? Incendiary moves and gimmicks and tricks and wow-wows and all of that. If you chant sincerely and just follow Srila Prabhupada's method, the kirtan will be wonderful. It doesn't need tricks, it doesn't need that you go home and practice your alaps, as they say these days, for 3 days to get ready for the kirtan. Just sweet and melodious chant Hare Krishna, and it will be wonderful. Is that all right?